How's it going, everyone? It's Holmes, and welcome back to Hot Takes with Holmes, podcast edition. My name is Blake Holmes, and typically you may be thinking, well, you're not live, you're not on the radio right now. Well, you see, after last week, we actually ended the semester off on a good note by just posting a podcast-style video onto our YouTube channel, just trying to end the semester off on a good note. I didn't feel right leaving it off with no broadcast due to the heavy snowfall we got last week. And as it turns out, I thoroughly enjoyed recording the show in this type of atmosphere, having just a set plan, not having to worry about being live, just a podcast style of a podcast style of broadcast. So here I am back again. I think this is something I want to do throughout the Christmas break. It's something that I could continue to get content back out onto our YouTube channel and get ready for the upcoming semester. So again, different mic quality, different location, same quality show. Stick around as today I'm going to be talking about the recent action around the NFL, NCAA, and NBA worlds. Starting off with college basketball, like we have been typically, we are going to do our typical Highlander review. So Radford started off the season very well with I believe it was an astonishing 6-1 record. The only loss being to Duquesne, and it was a neutral site game in that sense. Then, and that stretch actually included wins over Notre Dame and Texas. And then after that, they have lost 3 straight. James Madison was able to knock them off on the road. Same thing with Ohio, and they hung in it for the longest time with the Clemson Tigers. But the Tigers just too much firepower, and they were able to knock off the Highlanders 74-66. What does this mean for the Highlanders? It doesn't mean much. It just means that every team seems to come through a slump, unless you are your Dukes, your North Carolinas, your Gonzagas. Even Gonzaga here recently has been through a stretch. Each team is going to have their slump, is going to have their below average or below what you expect from them type of play. And you have to think this might be what that stretch could be for Radford, as again, Clemson, they hung tough, and it is showing as well that they are able to play up to their competition, and that is huge, especially when you go into postseason, when you go into the Big South tournament, going into, if you can make it, the NCAA tournament, playing up to your competition is crucial, especially if you're a team like Radford going into a lower seeded team. You'll have to play a higher seeded team. That is big. Clemson, they played close. They beat Texas and Notre Dame. And here soon, they're going to be starting Big South play, as we see here on the schedule. There's going to be a lot of games televised on ESPN+, and there are some big-name games. They actually still have Maryland on the schedule as well, so that's something to look out for. Moving on to our top 5, or just the rankings review in NCAA basketball. Number 1, they actually just released today. Number 1 is the Kansas Jayhawks with 56 first-place votes. They are 9-0, and they've been rather impressive so far. Number 2 is Duke with 5 first-place votes. Again, if you follow college basketball, you know about the tandem of freshmen they have. Cam R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, just a fantastic team that Coach K has there. Tennessee at number 3 with 2 first-place votes. Admiral Schofield winning Player of the Week this past week. Grant Williams, still a fantastic player. Number 4 is the Michigan Wolverines at 11-0. And if they keep winning, they keep rolling, you got to believe they might start jumping some teams with only 1 loss. Number 5 is UVA at 9-0. Again, same situation as Michigan. Tony Bennett always has a great defensive team in Charlottesville, so that's something to look out for. And then number 6, right behind Virginia, is Nevada at 11-0. Again, Nevada, the Wolfpack, coming in from their Elite 8 run last year. A very impressive team. Not a team anyone expected to make it as far as they did last year, but here they are at 11-0. Another team to look out for, again, Gonzaga. Gonzaga started off this season 9-2 with a big win over Duke in Maui. Then you go through and they lose to Tennessee in a neutral site game in Phoenix. And then you have them get beat by North Carolina this past week as well, who is right below them at number 9. So Gonzaga suffering a little bit of a slip. Kansas still on top and showing no signs of slowing down. But we all know the Big 12 can be tough to get through. You still have defensive teams like West Virginia, Oklahoma still there that could give them a run for their money. So Kansas, by no means an easy road for the rest of the way, but then again, it's not an easy road for anybody. That's going to do it for NCAA basketball. Going on to the National Football League. We had some big games this week as we start to close out the end of the regular season. None bigger than, or a few bigger, but this past Thursday night, the Los Angeles Chargers played the Kansas City Chiefs and won in Arrowhead And one of the gutsiest calls I have ever seen from a head coach. The Los Angeles Chargers, they scored with 4 seconds to go, and you think, oh, they're going to kick a field goal, they're going to try for overtime, this is going to be big. No, they decided to take it a step up. They go for 2, and guess what? They got it. Wide open receiver in the back right-hand corner of the end zone on a play-action pass, and the Chargers, they take a win, 29-28 in Arrowhead, because you know the old motto, if you're the home team, you play for overtime in these situations. If you're the away team, you play for the win. You know, that goes more so for college football more than anything, but they showed it could translate to the NFL as well, and the Chargers take a big win and potentially inch further to the AFC West title as they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Another big game this past Sunday was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. New England was trying to continue to hold the number 2 seed and separate themselves as Miami took a drumming to Minnesota this past weekend. And the Steelers, they were only a half game up on the Baltimore Ravens. They needed this win to keep the division lead, and they got it. They win 17-10 in Heinz Field as Tom Brady throws a crucial interception towards the end of the game made by Joe Hayden. Both quarterbacks seemed a bit up and down for the most part. Same thing with the offense, but it was the Steelers defense, and the big story this week, Chris Boswell makes the game-winning field goal to put them up 7 instead of 4, putting more pressure onto the New England Patriots and leading to them not being able to get into the end zone on their last drive. Boswell came up big. The defense came up big. It was really a win by the Steelers that we haven't seen yet this year. It's been the offense that's been carrying for the most part, and this year, the Steelers defense, the kicking team, special teams, gets the win for the Steelers. Another big game is the Bears and the Packers. Bears won 24-17. Not only does that give the Bears a division title for the first time, I believe, in a good while. One, it makes them go from last year they finished absolute at the bottom of the division. Now they are at the top of the division. And the Packers have been officially eliminated from playoff contention. Of course, the Vikings did beat the Dolphins, putting them into a good position to try to make a run for the playoffs. And the 49ers knocked off the Seattle Seahawks 26-23 in overtime. So Seattle at the 5 spot, they take a step back, and that opens the door for some other teams. Some teams like maybe a Carolina who plays New Orleans tonight, and that'll be a big game to watch. Charlotte, Monday Night Football, something to look out for. Moving on, and we're going to talk about the standings a little bit, just as that was a scoring review. We'll talk about a little bit of the standings here. So in week 16, or week 15, I should say, was a very big week for the playoff seedings, because in the AFC, number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, with the New England loss, Houston moves into the 2 spot, and if the playoffs were to end today, they would get a first-round bye as the 2 seed. Number 3 is the New England Patriots at 9-5. Number 4 is the Pittsburgh Steelers, clinging on to the division lead just by half a game. At number 5 is the Los Angeles Chargers. It's weird. An 11-3 team at a number 5 spot. That's what's going on in the AFC West this year. At number 6, we have the Baltimore Ravens right now, but they're 8-6. Right behind them, the Indianapolis Colts at 8-6, the Tennessee Titans at 8-6, the Miami Dolphins at 7-7, the Cleveland Browns at 6-7-1. Cleveland has a shot here, and it's something to look out for going into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. In the NFC, the New Orleans Saints clinch the division 11-2. Who's going to stop them right now? At number 2, the Los Angeles Rams at 11-3, suffering actually a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football last night. Opened the door for the NFC East, maybe, with the Cowboys losing game yesterday as well. Something to look out for. Chicago at number 3. They clinch the NFC North, 10-4 at this point. They are not out of a top 2 seed at this point. You know, New Orleans loses tonight. LA loses another game. Look out. Number 4 is the Dallas Cowboys, leading the NFC East by a game right now. Seattle is still at the number 5 spot at 8-6. Number 6 is the Minnesota Vikings at 7-6-1. Right behind them, the Eagles 7-7, the Redskins at 7-7, the Carolina Panthers at 6-7. Remember, they're still going to play the Saints tonight, and the Packers out of the playoffs. Moving on to one of my favorite things to do, as I say every single week here on the show, our week-by-week predictions. last week was, again, a very exciting week in the NFL. But here we are, week 16, a lot more clinching scenarios, a lot more big games, and it's something to look out for, and a lot of games that we can potentially see as big impact games for the rest of the season. So, starting off on Saturday, there is no Thursday night games anymore. It's Saturday night. The Washington Redskins on the road in Nashville for the Tennessee Titans. Josh Johnson, the quarterback for the Washington Redskins, he won his first start in his NFL career yesterday. He hadn't started a game in 7 years. You heard me correctly. 7 years he had not started for an NFL football team. And he gets the win yesterday against, I believe, I cannot remember who it was off the top of my head, but the Redskins, 7-7, they're not out of this. If Josh Johnson can continue to put performances together, the 6th seed in the NFC is not out of reach for them. Titans, they are the most confusing team in the NFL to me. I feel like if I pick them, they're going to win, or if I pick them, they're going to lose, but if I don't pick them, they're going to win. I'm going to pick the Titans here. They're 5-1 at home. Redskins, I'm not going to say I believe in Josh Johnson just yet. If he gets this win this week, maybe I will, but Tennessee at 8-6, 5-1 at home. That is a big number to look out for as well. That's not a fluke. They are a very good team at home. Marcus Mariota, Derrick Henry has had a coming out party these past 2 weeks. I like the Titans to, their running game more than anything, to level the game out, allow for more play action. Titans get the win at home. And on Saturday night, big game of the AFC, Baltimore taking on the Los Angeles Chargers on the road. Lamar Jackson has been pretty good as the quarterback for the Ravens. They have a lethal running attack right now. The Chargers at 11-3. This was going to be big because here's the thing. The Chargers beat the Chiefs last week. If they had not beaten the Chiefs would have won the AFC West. Therefore, the Chargers would have had nothing more to play for at this point. Yes, they've already pretty much clinched the 5 spot. I don't even believe it's possible for a team to. Well, it is possible if the Chargers lost their last 3 games and the Ravens were to. Actually, no, it's not possible. Chargers have clinched the number 5 spot in the AFC playoffs, at least. So, Chargers got the win. Now they're going to play their starters against the Baltimore Ravens on the road. I like the Chargers to win this game. Baltimore, they've been good lately. Their only loss has been to the Chiefs. That game went to overtime. But the Chargers, they have to go all the way across the country to play LA, and I don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to be able to withstand that big of a travel and in that lethal of an environment. The Chargers want that AFC West title, and they got to go through Baltimore to get it. I like the Chargers to win this game. Keenan Allen was shut out last week. No receptions, no yards. It won't happen this week. They beat the Ravens. On Sunday, the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Cleveland Browns. Again, Cleveland's not out of the playoff race just yet. They're looking to potentially try to sneak in. There's a few things that need to happen. They don't control their own destiny by any means, but you better look out for those pesky Cleveland Browns. Fun fact, in his first 6 games as a head coach, Greg Williams has already won more games than Hugh Jackson did in his entire Cleveland tenure. In 6 games, Williams is 4-2, and in Hugh Jackson's case, he was 337-1. Unbelievable. I like the Browns to win this game too. At home, they're 4-2-1. The Bengals, they are decimated right now with injuries. Jeff Driscoll is the quarterback right now. AJ Green has had some injury problems this season. I like the Browns to win this game at home, continue to keep their playoff hopes alive at least for another week. Tampa taking on Dallas. Dallas coming off a big loss last week to the Tennessee Titans. They were actually shut out on the road. I believe the score was 23-0 or something like that. The Cowboys were taking on the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers came up with a loss as well. A close game with the Baltimore Ravens. I like the Cowboys to kind of turn it around, win this game on the road. They're 6-1 at home. That's another thing to look out for. Out of their 8 wins, they've won 6 of them at home. They've got a very good home field atmosphere. I like the Cowboys to beat Tampa this week. I actually like them to win pretty big. Minnesota and Detroit. Detroit at home against Minnesota, 7-6-1. Vikings had a big win. They actually blew out the Miami Dolphins at home last week. No answers for Miami against that defense, and except for very long touchdown run by Kalen Balaj. But the Vikings, I think their luck runs out this week. I like that. The Lions have not been good this year. They really haven't. They're 5-9. They're not the same team. Matthew Stafford has not been the same quarterback that we've seen him be in the past. But I like them to play spoiler here at home, knock off the Vikings, and allow and open the door for some of the other teams right on the fringe of the playoffs. And then moving on, the Colts playing host to the New York Giants in Indianapolis. The Giants have officially been eliminated from playoff contention with the loss I believe, let's see, I do not recall who it was they actually lost to last week, but the Giants I actually got that backwards. The Cowboys lost to the Titans last week. It was the Giants that lost to it was the Cowboys that lost to the Colts, and the Giants lost to the Titans. My apologies. So the Giants, coming off of a loss to the Titans, a shutout loss, the Colts will play the Giants here, 8-6 at home. Give me the Colts to win this game. They're making a push for the AFC playoffs, and like I said, if everything goes the way I said it would, Baltimore loses this game. Colts win. They move into the sixth spot in the AFC. Big games coming out. I like the Colts to win and protect their home field. Jacksonville and Miami. I swear it's not the home teams. I like Miami to win this game as well. Jacksonville. This is the type of game. However, this is the type of game that Jacksonville could play spoiler. Their defense has been lackluster at times, but they've been fantastic at times. Their offense is still stagnant. That's the thing. I almost believe this is a game that the first team to 20 points will win, because the Jacksonville offense, even with Leonard Fournette in the game, has not been good this year. There really is no way to say it. And their defense has kept them in games, but it's just not been good enough to win the games for them. You have to have a certain offense. If it comes down to a point in the game where you need your quarterback to go out and you say, okay, we need you to lead a drive and get into the end zone, or at least get the ball through the uprights. They're just not doing it. Miami at times, they're 6-1 at home this year. They're 7-7 total, 6-1 at home. I like Miami. I'm taking a safe pick, taking Miami to beat the Jaguars at home. Buffalo and New England. New England has not lost a game at home this year. It's hard to believe. They're actually been very bad on the road, 3-5 total on the road, but 6-0 at home. Foxborough, you can't name many places in the NFL that's harder to play in than Foxborough, Massachusetts. I like the home field advantage. Pats get the win here. Rebound from last week against the Steelers, and they beat the Bills. Packers, Jets. This is a game that really has no meaning. Both teams are out of the playoffs at this point. Just for argument's sake, actually, the Jets are favored by 2.5, but I like the Packers to win this game. Rodgers goes in to East Rutherford, and they go through, and I think Devontae Adams has a pretty good game in the receiving game. The Packers are a decimated team as well. They have had a lot of injury trouble, but I like Green Bay to win this game, go to about 6-8, 6-8-1. Texans, Eagles. This is actually a very big game as well. Eagles fighting for the NFC East. They are only a game back from the Dallas Cowboys, but the Texans at 10-4, they are the number 2 seed in the AFC. Something that's interesting. They have to keep winning. They control their own destiny for the number 2 seed in the AFC right now. The Philadelphia Eagles do not. They have to hope that Dallas loses another game, and they get the Texans home. But I like the Texans right now. The Texans are a red-hot football team. They are a very good football team overall. Their defense, their offense is stout. I like the Texans to win on the road here, 5 to go to 11-4, and keep the Pats out of the number 2 spot. Atlanta and Carolina. This game will hinge on its importance on what the result of tonight's game will be. Because if Carolina can find a way to beat New Orleans Saints tonight, after struggling here in the past bit, they'll be 7-7 and just outside of the playoff race. If that happens, you better believe they're going to win this game. I know that the Falcons will try to play spoilers, especially to one of their most hated rivals, but they're 1-5 on the road. The Panthers, if you get a big win on Monday night against the New Orleans Saints of all teams, that's going to be so much of a momentum boost. Panthers will win this game next week. Now, If they don't, it's possible that the Falcons could come in and officially end the playoff hopes for the Carolina Panthers. But it hinges on tonight. If they win, I like the Panthers. Rams, Cardinals. Cardinals, they may play. No, they're not. They're not going to play spoiler. Rams are going to win this game big on the road. I know it's division. You could throw the records out the window, but NFC West, it's not too far for them to go. The Rams coming off of a loss to Philadelphia, they're going to be hungry for another win. Rosen is going to struggle in this game with the defense and the pressure that they're going to put on him. And Cardinals are not going to be. The Cardinals' offense is just not going to be good this game. Rams going to get the big win in Glendale. Chicago and San Francisco. San Francisco has been sneakily a good team past few games. A couple games ago, they won over the Denver Broncos. Then they beat the Seattle Seahawks last week. They play the Bears, who again they are looking to try to keep winning and hoping that the Rams and the Saints can continue to lose, so that way they can get a top 2 spot. I like the Niners. I think the Niners could win this game. I'm going with the Bears. I think the Bears will win this game. It's going to be a close game, but the two-headed monster in the backfield with Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen is just too much for the Niners to be able to withstand. I like Chicago to win this game, but don't look out. Don't forget about those 49ers and Nick Mullins in the passing game. At 4:25, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off their big win against the New England Patriots last week, and the New Orleans Saints, again, hinging on what happens tonight against Carolina. The Steelers, that was the win that they needed because it made people realize, remember, the Steelers like to play up to their competition. Whether you can make fun of them. They lost to the Raiders. They lost to whatever team is bad. It's true. It happens every year. They seem to have a few games where it's games that they should win by a lot, but yet they don't. And obviously, with the Oakland game last week, that was the perfect representation of that. But they get a big win over the Patriots, and they go on the road to the New Orleans Saints. Saints. I'm going to take the safe bet here. I think that the Steelers definitely have the firepower, and if there is a team that, for whatever reason, will compete with New Orleans on the road, it will be Pittsburgh, especially if their defense plays like they did last week. But I'm going to pick the Saints. Saints at home, there's not many teams that are better. The road home Ben Roethlisberger is much different than road Ben. I think the Saints win this game. This could be a lot closer. Actually, it's New Orleans favored by 6.5. I don't know if I agree with that. I think it should be closer 2-0. I think the Saints definitely should be favored. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely going to be a big game, though, as Baltimore, especially if they beat LA next week, they'll be looking out for this game a ton. Lastly, on Sunday night, we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Seattle Seahawks at home. Seattle, this is not the game you wanted after coming off a loss to San Francisco. You do get a home game, but it's against the number 1 team in the AFC at 11-3. Their offense, other than keep in mind, here's the insanity. I believe this number is just an estimate. Patrick Mahomes threw for about 270 something passing yards last week. That is his career low as a starter. There are players out there that average 270 some yards per game. A lot of players do. His career low is 270 passing yards a game. Seahawks, they lose this game. Kansas City coming in on the road. I know CenturyLink Field, Seattle's always good there, but Kansas City, the defense aside from last week has been playing pretty good as of late. Mahomes is still unstoppable. They found their guy. Damian Williams just was on fire last week against LA. If they can get that type of running attack again against the Seattle Seahawks, Chiefs going to win this game big. Monday night, Denver and Oakland. This was a game that had a little bit more hope for it. Oakland 3-11 at this point. Denver 6-8. Denver needs a lot to happen to get into the playoff race at this point, and they will take again. They have 2 games left, and they have to win those 2 games just go 8-8. It's highly unlikely they make the playoffs at this point. I like them to win against the Raiders on the road. Denver's defense, their running defense, does enough to stabilize the game, and they get pressure on Derek Carr not allowing him to make the plays that he needs to make to win the game. And Case Keenum does just enough. I like to think that Case Keenum sometimes is like a game manager, like Alex Smith, but I think he does just enough to get Denver the win. And Philip Lindsay runs wild in this game as well. That's going to do it for the National Football League. Moving on to NCAA football, we've had some bowl games as of late that have been. We've already had some bowl games going through. None that are big, like massive games, but we have had some as of late. Starting it off, we had the Arizona State Sun Devils and the Fresno State Bulldogs. Fresno State actually got the win, 31-20, in the Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl. After that, you had the AutoNation Cure Bowl. Tulane gets the win over Louisiana. Lafayette Raging Cajuns. Tulane wins 41-24. After that, you have Utah State versus North Texas in the New Mexico Bowl. Utah State got the win big over North Texas, 52-13. After that was the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl. Big mouthful. Georgia Southern beats Eastern Michigan 23-21. And lastly, we had the RL Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Middle Tennessee loses big to Appalachian State. Appalachian State, always contenders when it comes to the bowl season. The upcoming games this week, we have on Tuesday, UAB. Again, a few years ago, they didn't even have a football program anymore. It got disbanded. Here they are. They come back. They win their conference. UAB against Northern Illinois in the Cheribundi Boca Raton Bowl. I like UAB to win that game. Again, I like them to cap off a successful season. It's really an inspiring comeback story. Wednesday, we have San Diego State versus Ohio in the Frisco Bowl, the DXL Frisco Bowl. Thursday, we have the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl, Marshall in South Florida. Friday, we have Florida International versus Toledo in the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl. And Western Michigan versus BYU in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Saturday is Memphis, Wake Forest in the Jared Birmingham Bowl. At 3:30, we have Houston and Army in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Again, Army will always make a bowl for that reason. They're 10-2 this year, though. It's something to look out for as well. Buffalo and Troy in the Dollar General Bowl. Hawaii and Louisiana Tech in the SoFi Hawaii Bowl. And that'll round it out for the rest of the week. Some exciting games coming up. The big games won't come until the end of the new year, or until the end of this year, right around New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, the New Year's Six, as they call them. That's something to look out for. And of course, the college football semifinals will be right around the corner. And the last thing I want to talk about here is the NBA standings right now. Of course, we have had some rather impressive teams so far. A few surprise teams as well. The Toronto Raptors are still leading the Eastern Conference right now at 23-9. Of course, they have had some injuries lately. Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, just to name a couple that have been out in the last two games of their past road trip. Milwaukee at 19-9. They are the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, they still have a very talented roster. They could stack up with a lot of teams. Number 3 is the Indiana Pacers at 20-10. Victor Oladipo, Miles Turner, that team, they've won 7 straight, and they've been a very hot team in the Eastern Conference. They're not backing down from anybody, and Victor Oladipo is on a vengeance right now. Number 4 is the Philadelphia 76ers at 20-11. Of course, they still have the big three, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid. A very impressive team in Philadelphia right now. Number 5 is the Boston Celtics at 18-11. Started a little bit rough. Actually, only went about 500, and now they're at 18-11. Went on a big tear. They lost the last game, but this is a team that could stack up with anybody in the league. So they're finding their footing. Number 6 is one of the surprise teams I was talking about, the Detroit Pistons. I didn't expect much from Detroit this year. They're 14-13. I know it's not a ton, but aside from their front court, I didn't see a huge playmaker. I mean, yeah, you had Stanley Johnson. You still have Reggie Jackson up there, but as far as it goes, mostly their front court is what carries them. So I didn't expect them to be in the playoffs at any point this year. Number 7 is Charlotte at 14-15. Kemba Walker's played like an MVP candidate at times this year, and Charlotte 14-15. They're in the playoffs right now, something to look forward to for the rest of the season. Orlando at number 8, they have a lot of front court players: Nikola Vucevic, Jonathan Simmons, Aaron Gordon, of course, the guy they paid a ton of money to in the offseason, and Mo Bamba coming off the bench as well. Miami's right behind them with Brooklyn in the 10th spot. In the Western Conference, at number one spot, we have the Denver Nuggets at 20-9. They are the lone team on top of the Western Conference. A lot of injuries right now as well, with three main guys out: Paul Millsap, Gary Harris, Will Barton. Isaiah Thomas still has yet to see the floor. This is a team that's dangerous right now. They're playing like titles contenders, and they're 20-9. Number two is Golden State, right behind them at 20-10. Of course, they still have not seen their full potential without Boogie Cousins. No one really knows 100% when he's going to be back onto the floor. He has been practicing with their G League team, but Golden State at number two right now, 20-10. Number three, right behind them, is the Oklahoma City Thunder at 18-10. They are, again, this is a team that is a very talented team. Steven Adams is an underrated big man in the post. Russell Westbrook still a fantastic point guard. Paul George on the wing. Oklahoma City a good team. It's a team that could be big when it comes to postseason time. Number four is the Los Angeles Lakers, 18-12. The LeBron effect. In their last game, LeBron James and Lonzo became the first teammates to both have, or the first Lakers teammates, I should say, to have a triple double in the same game. The last time that happened was Kareem and Magic Johnson, so that's pretty good company to be in with, and they're 18-12. Number five is the LA Clippers, falling from grace a little bit. They were on top of the Western Conference. Now they're 17-12. They've lost three straight. Tobias Harris still has been playing like a very good player, and on the wing for that team. And I want to take a quote from, I believe it was Jalen Rose or someone like that on ESPN. They said the thing that makes teams like the Clippers and the Nuggets and the Grizzlies great is that they're playing egoless basketball. There's not a guy out there that's trying to quote unquote get his and trying to take over a game completely. They play unselfishly. They play fantastically. They play. It was either Jalen Rose or Chauncey that said that. So LA, they don't really have a true playmaker. They don't have a guy that you're going to be like, okay, we have to focus on him and him specifically. They have guys like Danilo Gallinari, Tobias Harris, as I mentioned, Boban Marjanovic coming off of the bench, Patrick Beverley in the point guard game. They have a talented team, and of course the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as well. Number six is the Memphis Grizzlies at 16-13. They suffered some injuries last year. They were not able to be a good team, just to put it straight up. They lost Mike Conley for the entire season, but now they're 16-13. Jaren Jackson Jr. has made his way into the starting lineup, and Memphis looks pretty good right now. They're always going to be a hard-nosed defensive team, and here they are, number six spot in the West. Number seven, moving into the seventh spot, is the Sacramento Kings at 16-13. De'Aaron Fox is growing up right in front of our eyes, as Stu Gotts would put it, and the Kings are a very interesting team right now. They have some young pieces. They look like they could contend at least for a playoff spot towards the end of this year. 16-13, it's up for grabs for anybody at this point. Number eight is Portland at 16-13. Again, they were on top. They were close to the top of the Western Conference, and then they fell from grace again a little bit. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, they've been great, and then they've been rough the next night. So you can't really predict what the Blazers are going to do night in, night out. Right behind them is Dallas at 15-13. Luka Doncic, in my mind, is the Rookie of the Year, and I don't see another contender. You could say Trae Young, but Trae Young's playing for an awful Atlanta team, so he's going to take every shot he can. Mavericks, they still have guys like Dennis Smith Jr., Dirk Nowitzki, who just played his first action of the season here recently, and DeAndre Jordan. Luka Doncic is really becoming the face of the Mavericks. Right behind them is the Spurs at 15-15, the Rockets at 14-14. Rockets, you don't need to talk much about them. James Harden, Chris Paul. Chris Paul has been injured lately, but James Harden still playing MVP form. New Orleans at 15-16, Utah at 14-16, and Minnesota at 13-16. You know what that means? That means out of all those teams I just listed, only Minnesota would not be in the playoffs right now if they were in the Eastern Conference. That is insanity. All right, actually misspoke. It would actually be Utah and Minnesota that would not be in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Just goes to show how tough the Western Conference is to win in this day and age. But our players of the week, excuse me. Of course, as I mentioned last week, we are always like a couple weeks behind because they usually announce the players of the week like tonight. So 2 weeks ago, the Eastern Conference Player of the Week was Bradley Beal, and the Western Conference Player of the Week was a familiar face, Stephen Curry, for the Golden State Warriors. Bradley Beal from the Wizards. Curry, you don't need to say much, but it hasn't been said about Curry so far in his time in the NBA. probably, and they're really, to me, it's no probably, it is. He's the greatest shooter of all time, making shots that some people only dream of making in a game, making it look easy. Bradley Beal, there's been a lot of dysfunction with the Washington Wizards this year, including John Wall telling his coach some expletive words, of course, in the middle of a timeout. A lot of dysfunction in Washington right now. A lot of reports that Bradley Beal may be traded by the end of this year, but as of now, he still is the starting shooting guard for the Washington Wizards, and he still is a pretty above average player. He still is a very good player in the East. It's just I am curious to see if he does get traded, where he would go and how much more of an impact he would give. Because it's obvious that backcourt does not play well with each other. It's been that obvious for a while now, at least to me. And I do believe that if he does get traded, we may see a different Bradley Beal than we're used to seeing. Well, that's going to do it here on Hot Takes with Holmes, podcast edition, the next episode. If you like what you heard, then be sure to like our Facebook page. We'll update all that goes on here on Hot Takes with Holmes. Of course, we'll update you different show times. We still don't know what time we're going to actually be going live in the spring semester, but as soon as I find that out, that'll go onto the YouTube channel to let everybody know, or excuse me, on the Facebook page to let everybody know. We also let you know whenever our uploads are uploaded to YouTube. So find us on YouTube. Of course, you obviously are probably listening to it here on YouTube. So uh, be sure to like and follow our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, to be able to keep up with some of the great content that we put out every single week, and keep up with what goes on before the spring semester. Get a head start. Now, that's going to do it for me. I'm Blake Holmes, and we'll see you next week here on Hot Takes with Holmes.